think we should begin. Let's begin. Let's begin. So what I'm going to do today, as you can see, it's WWE tonight. We're having some wrestling because this week's Torah portion has got the most craziest biblical scene you could possibly imagine. It's got a scene of a crazy wrestling, intense martial arts match. If you thought Tyson, Roy Jones Jr. and The Weeknd was good, you ain't seen nothing like Jacob versus Satan, which happening on this Shabbat. So we're going to learn about it. And critically, we're going to learn that every time there's a story in the Torah, it's not just a historical lesson, it's a lesson for you today. And the fight that he had is the fight that we all have. You see, he wasn't just fighting Satan, he was fighting himself, he was fighting his lower self. And we're going to learn that, as you know, your greatest opponent to stop you trying to achieve your potential is you. Your greatest nemesis is you. Your greatest sabotager is you. And we're going to give you, with Hashem's help, in the second half of tonight, it's going to be a game of two halves, to coin a phrase. And the first half, we're going to go through quite a bit of text. But then the second half, when that ref blows the whistle for the second half, bang, I'm going to go freestyle, and we're going to go crazy deep into you and giving you Kabbalistic strategies, how to win and how to overcome your Yetzer Hara, your lower self. We're going to define what it is, tell you how to beat it, how to smash it, how to be victorious. And it's going to be awesome, because coming out of tonight in about 60 minutes, you're going to look at yourself very differently. And the most important thing, please, as you know, like with any good movie or with any good anything, the last 5 minutes is the best. So you've got to stay for the last 5 minutes, because those last 5 minutes is the game changer. Is the surprise, is like the, oh my gosh, is the OMG, it's the crazy, you weren't expecting it, twist, and then bang, you'll get it and you'll love it and it will change your life. So got to be there for those last 5 minutes, everyone. Could be 8 minutes, because I think we need to elaborate and explain how the game changer really will change your game forever. And it'll be unexpected and it'll be like, whoa, it'll be worth coming for that. Okay, let's begin. So the first part, it'll be really awesome if you could be in the keynotes there. I know who you are, you keynotes. Ariela's there. She's definitely one of our keynotes. It'll be awesome if you can get one of these alongside you. Quickly, if you can get a chumash, or if you've got another computer there, which you probably got at least 17, then get out to Sefaria or Chabad.org and put it on to chapter 32, Parsha Vayishlach, and follow along with me. Look at a bit of the text. Oisios makimos, the letters make you wise. And just by looking at these letters and understanding the letters, we're going to understand a lot about yourself and really draw a lot closer to Hashem. So if you've got chapter 32, and then we could do a little bit of work, then that would be awesome. Okay, here we go. Let's do this. Vayishlach Yaakov. You got it? Vayishlach Yaakov. And Yaakov sent. Malachim lefonov, angels before him. So just to set up the scene, where are we holding, everybody? Where are we holding? The story is, at the end of last week's episode, Jacob, our hero, Yaakov, our great-grandfather, he's just run away finally and taken his family with him from Lavan. From this wicked man who's tried to steal all his money and is really corrupt and is spiritual, one of our biggest nemesis, Lavan. And I was just learning today in the Zohar that Yaakov's role was to take out what we call the klipot. There are spiritual souls which are covered in peels. And the sparks of Rachel and Leah and Bilhah and Zilpah were covered in Haran, and Jacob had to save them. And then he had to go and bring out the 12 tribes, the 12 souls which were hidden, the sparks in Haran, and he got the 12 tribes of Israel. And then he had to take out the 600,000 root souls, which are connected to all the sheep he took out. The souls were somewhat hidden there, and now he's taken everyone out. He's taken everyone out. He saved us. He's enabled us to get to where we're going to be. And it's time to leave Lavan. Goodbye, Lavan. Kiss goodbye. And now, the end of last week, it says now Jacob is deciding. Yaakov says, okay, now we need to try and deal with my brother. Which, by the way, is really controversial. Because the Zohar says, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, this amazing line, which some of you probably have heard of, let sleeping dogs lie. Anyone heard that line before? Let sleeping dogs lie. Esau was a sleeping dog. Esau was the biggest dog, was the scariest dog. He's, we believe Kabbalistically, he's the father of Amalek, our greatest spiritual nemesis in the Torah. He tries to kill us after the splitting of the Red Sea. He's the great-grandfather of Haman. The Talmud in Megillah, page 6, seems to say he's the genetic father of Hitler and the Nazis. Esau's that neo-Nazi psycho that wants to uproot every Jewish person from this world. And he's having a sleep right now, and Yaakov is like, let's go and make peace with him. The Zohar says, are you crazy? What are you doing? Are you meshuggah? The last thing you need to do is wake up that sleeper. He's like, quiet now, it's peace. What are you doing? But Yaakov, in his infinite wisdom and understanding, knows he's kind of on a roll. He's just beaten Lavan. He feels, because as we've learned about, these tzaddikim could feel their guts and know what Hashem wants from them. So he knew that what Hashem wanted was now to take out Esav as well. And when he comes out of Lavan, he's on the way to meet Esav. From the distance, he sees these 600,000 angels in one camp. And then another camp, says the Zohar, another 600,000 angels. So he's now 1.2 million angels. And those 600,000 angels obviously are alluding to our 600,000 root souls. The question is, what's the other camp doing? So the mystics explain they are the duality within us. We have a Yetzer Tov, which is connected to our guardian angel and the angel of our Yetzer Tov in a sense. And then our lower self, the Yetzer Hara, also has an angel too. And just Robbie Williams likes to sing a little bit of angels. I'm definitely not going to sing angels now. But what I will tell you is, now, when we're learning Torah together, we're making angels. We're making angels. We're making good, beautiful, spiritual, positive angels, which can do good in the world, which can go and help get the vaccine quicker and save lives. But conversely, God forbid, when we sin, when we lose our temper, when we let the Yetzer Hara win, that, God forbid, creates angels as well. And at the end of our lives, we're going to see this huge pile-up of the good angels and the scary angels. Something a little bit deep. It says that when we do sins, we almost create power to the negative angel. So one of the greatest tactics I would definitely recommend to help you take away, as well as doing teshuvah, obviously, is Rabbi Nachman's famous Tikkun Klali. Because in Tikkun Klali, he literally, and I don't want to go through it tonight, it's not really appropriate, it's a little bit X-rated. But look into the English and you'll see. He explains, when you say Tikkun Klali, you literally take the power that the Shin Dalids, that the other side have from the sins we do, and thank God it then takes over. With the Tikkun Klali, it comes over to the good side. So then what was negative can now be transformed for positive. And that's really what Teshuvah does, and that's definitely what Tikkun Klali can accomplish. So essentially, Jacob is seeing these 1.2 million angels. And now he's going to send some angels of himself. Vayishlach Yaakov malachim levanav. And by the way, we send angels. We send angels. If you're ever going to go into a really important business meeting, a mystic once told me, say some psalms before you go. And then send positive vibes. Send some angels in. Send some angels in the room. Send holiness in the room. Send light in the room. And you'll see, by sending that positivity, that they'll be drawn to you and things can, please God, have more of a positive outcome. Try it. We can send angels. Jacob sent angels to Esav. That's the first part. And now the question is it angels or messengers? Because the word in Hebrew for angels is the same in biblical Hebrew. Malach and malach, both these messengers and angels. So Rashi says, malachim mamash. It's literal angels. Literal angels, mamash angels. And the great Maggid of Mezerich says something really deep. See if you can get it. He explains that the word mamash means from the word mamashut, which is feeling, touchy-feely. He explains that Jacob sent the mamashut of the angels, the mamoshus of the angels, which means the physicality of the angels, which means he went through that, he ticked the box. We'll go, but he wasn't going to be vulnerable. Jacob didn't send his inner world. He didn't send his inner self. He's like, I'm not getting myself, God forbid, vulnerable to Esau. So I'll send my external, I'll send my body armor, but the essence of me isn't going to go. And the Maggid seems to say that when we have to go out to the world, hey Mandy, nice to see you. When we go out to the world, sometimes we have to go out there and it's not very attuned to Torah, but we have to go because our job is to be a light to the nations. Says the Maggid of Mezerich, send your mamoshus out. Go out, do the job. Let them see your external, let them see the actions, but don't give them your heart. Don't open up yourself, the way you are in your house, the way you are with your family, the way you are with your loved ones, the way you are in yeshiva, the way you are in shul. Don't expose that outside. Keep that private. Keep that. And maybe that's the difference between assimilation and integration as the Jewish nation. Our job is to be a light to the nations. And to go out in the outside world and be this ethical light like Rabbi Jonathan Sachs was. An incredible light to the nations. But don't compromise who you are and don't expose your innermost world. And that's where assimilation is. Assimilation is when you give up who you are and when you're no longer who you are and you allow yourself to be influenced more than you being the influencer. And that's really the role of the Jewish people. To go out there, to make friends, to build bridges, but to always know there's a bit of Havdalah. We don't have to go to all the parties. We don't have to go and drink in every bar. We can be out there, be wonderful at work, be a really big Kiddush Hashem, but only send the mamoshus of you. Don't send the internal. Anyway, that's what the Maggid says. So Jacob's now preparing for 3 ways to meet Esau, to how you combat anti-Semitism. There's 3 ways to prepare, and the Gemara explains that the times in the Roman exile as such, when the Romans started defeating Jerusalem at the end of the Second Temple, when we had to negotiate with them, they learnt this Vayishlach. If any of you have got an important meeting with a neo-Nazi this week, then read Vayishlach, right? Any of you that are involved in peace dialogue, this is the Sedra, says the Gemara, how to prepare for it. And Rabbi Yanai once forgot to do this on the way to a big negotiation, and there was a terrible consequence, and they never forgot to do it again. And how you meant to prepare, how you meant to prepare for war, how you meant to prepare to deal and negotiate. 3 ways. Prayer, he prayed. He prepared for war, but also for peace. There was a dialogue as well. There was a hope for peace. And I think that's a beautiful way, let's say in Israel now, if I was advising Netanyahu, which I'm not, if any of you have a relationship with him and feel he could do with having a chat with Rabbi Hill, I would be saying to him, let's learn Vayishlach. And that's the way we need to prepare. We need to pray, because obviously success is going to come from Hashem. Peace comes from Hashem. On the other hand, we need to be pragmatic and understand what could be negative, worse consequences and plan for that and prepare for war if need be. But then also have a very genuine track for peace, because that's what we learned from Yaakov Avinu, and that's the way we should do it in this approach. And he did that. The next verse I'd like you to look at is verse number 8. It's a very controversial verse. It says, Vayira Yaakov ma'od. Yaakov was very afraid. He saw Esau with his 400 men, and he had 400 men for each 400 men. So that makes, according to my math, 16,000, an army of 16,000. So it's a bit weird, because Jacob's got his angels of 1.2 million. He kind of wins. Maybe you might say he gets 600,000 and Esau had 600,000 angels, so maybe they cancel each other out. But essentially, Yaakov's there with his yeshiva bachas family, and even though they are warriors, to be fair, as we're going to see soon, he's an incredible warrior. In the end of the set with Shimon and Levi, are real martial arts experts. But at the end of the day, this is Esau, and he's got 16,000 men. And it says that Jacob was afraid. Yaakov Avinu was afraid. Vayira Yaakov ma'od. He was very afraid by Yetzelo, and it distressed him. And I've got a very simple question for you, those who join our Wednesday nights. And if you're new, welcome. It's wonderful to see you come every Wednesday, and you'll learn so much about yourself, about Hashem, about life, about purpose. And one of the things we learn about, which is constant in our J Network Wednesday nights, are bitachon, trust in Hashem. You shouldn't really be scared of everything, as the great Rabbi Nachman says. V'ha'ikar lo lefached klal. Never to be afraid. We shouldn't be afraid. Or as FDR says, he doesn't sing it, but he says the only thing to fear is fear itself, right? The only thing to fear is fear itself. So yeah. So if we shouldn't be afraid. Why on earth is Yaakov Avinu afraid, right? Why is Yaakov afraid? He shouldn't be afraid. He shouldn't be afraid. So some mystics say that's why he was afraid. He was afraid because he was afraid. He knew he shouldn't have been afraid. He knows, I'm like Yaakov. Hello, I'm a tzaddik. I love Hashem. Hashem runs everything. Why am I afraid? So it's almost like this kind of awareness of his gut, and he feels a bit of fear, and then he's fearful for his fear. The question is, where is that fear coming from? Where's that fear coming from? So the clue to the fear, and the only time when we are allowed to have fear, is a beautiful song, which I'm going to put on my Facebook tomorrow, or before Shabbat, because I highly recommend it, from Yonatan Razel, called Katonti, which is from this week's Parsha. Katonti mikol chasadim. You know that one? I'm humbled, he says, from all the chasadim and all the emet, from all the kindness and all the truth that Hashem has given me. Hashem saved Yaakov so many times. He saved him from Lavan. Saved him. And Yaakov says, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy anymore. Hashem, I haven't been able to honor my parents for the past 34 years. And you know what? Esau was an expert in kibbud av va'em. And by the way, any of you that are blessed to have parents, please, tonight, send them a message. I love you. Give them extra respect. Work on kibbud av va'em. You see that the fear that Yaakov wasn't able to be an expert in kibbud av va'em those last years of his life led him literally to be fearful of his life. That's why it says if you do kibbud av va'em, the skula is long life, one of the biggest mitzvahs in the Torah we can do. He says if your parents will say the capital of France is Monaco, you're not allowed to contradict them even. You're never allowed to contradict. Can't contradict. Because they're your parents. They're like your tefillin. They're your Shabbos candles. We just love them. We polish them. We're kind. We're respectful. We honor. Not like today's crazy day and age. Let's call them by their first name and be friends and be chatty. You're not friends with your Shabbos candles, and you're not friends with your tefillin. You honor them. You respect them. You give them a kiss. Anyway. So that's why he's afraid. He's afraid because of his spirituality. That, my dear friends, is the only time we're allowed to be afraid. We're allowed to be afraid of our Yetzer Hara. We can be afraid of our vulnerability. We can be afraid of our lack of mitzvot. We can be afraid of our spiritual actions. Hashem can do anything and protect us, but we need to also protect ourselves, and that is something that we have to own and we have to take responsibility for. And it seems that was the source of Yaakov Avinu's fear. Moving on, I think it's time for WWE. Is it? Is it time for that? I think it is. So please turn to verse 25. So here's what happens, actually, verse 24. So Jacob is now, Yaakov Avinu is with his family, and he's walking to Esau. And then he just remembers, uh-oh, I've left something behind. And if you've done that, I do that the whole time. Leave things behind every time. Just my keys, this, that, the other, passports. So Yaakov, we're forgetful. He was forgetful. And he's like, how am I going to get my jugs back? He left some jugs. And the mystics say the most amazing thing. What were these jugs? They weren't jugs of orange juice, l'chaim. What do you think the jugs were? Come on, time for you to type in something now. Time for you to do some work. What do you think the jugs were? A little clue. It's to do with this month, the month of Kislev. And by the way, it's going to say this words. If you look at the words in verse 25, Vayivoser Yaakov levadoi, and Yaakov is left alone. The word levadoi can be also with one letter. If you change the chaf, if you change the vav to a chaf, it's lekado. He left his jug behind. Very good, Katie. Oil. And which jug of oil is it alluding to? The mystics say, very great sefer called the Yismach Moshe says as an introduction, it was the jug of Hanukkah. It was passed down the generations, this miraculous oil, which was never broken, the seal that was never broken, which lit the menorah for 8 days, which only should have lasted for 24 hours. That was the oil and the jug that Yaakov Avinu had. What's up, James? Nice to see you, man. That was the same jug of oil, same jugs. So he's connecting to the Hanukkah story here and now. And he left it on the other side of the river. So he goes to the other side of the river to go and pick it up. He leaves his family on one side and now goes to the other side of the river to pick it up. And the angels is like, whoa, now you're in trouble. Because you're waking up the sleeping dog, and now you're going all by yourself. That's one of the ideas that, let's say, please God. You ready, singles? Like, listen to this blessing. Any single who's listening to the share now, Hashem should bless them to get married, mamash, immediately. Immediately they should find their soulmate. Hashanah, this year should be under the chuppah. Now, amen. I want to hear an amen from you. Amen. Beautiful. Type in an amen, and then I know it's real. Right? So type in an amen. And where are we going with that? Got carried away with the amens. Oh, yeah. Good, Katie's giving me an amen. Wow, that means you're going to get married first. Sherry's amen. Hope you're feeling better. So, please God, when you become a chatan and kala, on your wedding day, Leah's non amen, on your wedding day, you're not allowed, and it should be a skula for you. You, my dear friends, will not be allowed to walk alone in the streets. Georgina, amen to you as well. Amen. It's exciting. You're not allowed to walk by yourselves in the street. Why? Because on the day of your chuppah, so spiritual. You're so vulnerable for spiritual chaos. The shin dadids, demons are allowed to, God forbid, attack. So you're not allowed to be by yourself. You're not allowed to be by yourself. Because if you're yourself, that's when you can be attacked. So Jacob's now asking for trouble. He's going to the other side of the river by himself in a time when he maybe shouldn't even be attacking Esau. And here's the next point. I mean to you, Rebecca. The next point is, if you're by yourself, you're vulnerable. And Yaakov knows when he's going to physically fight Esau, he needs to go through a spiritual fight too. So the head of the Shin Dalet, right? The head of Satan is now going to be fighting Jacob. And that's what's going to happen. He goes to the other side of the river. Vayivoser Yaakov levado. And I'm embarrassed to say that I only worked out a question this afternoon that I heard. It says in Jacob was alone. And then the next minute it says a man wrestled with him. This is the big WWE, everybody. It's in verse 25. I didn't make it up. Verse 25, chapter 32. There's the wrestling match. Jacob's wrestling with Satan. He's wrestling with Satan himself, with the angel. But the question is, it says he's alone. If he's not alone, if he's alone, then he's not with Satan. So what does it mean? And Jacob's left alone, then a man starts wrestling with him. So we're going to explain that a little bit later. We're going to explain that. This word, vaye'avek, is a really fascinating Kabbalistic word. Vaye'avek means, on one hand, it means dust. It means dust. And it also means wrestle. It means to wrestle, and it means dust. And it says that the dust went up all the way. It went up all the way to the Kisei HaKavod, to the clouds of glory. And I learned a beautiful gematria from Rabbi Biederman today. Rabbi Biederman says the Balaturim explains that Vaye'ovek comes to 119, Psalm 119. And 119 is also the numerical value of Kisei HaKavod, the heavenly throne. So Hashem was delighted with this fight. This was giving Hashem tremendous joy, which is amazing. That means when we fight our Yitzhara, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I hope God's not watching this, actually, He's watching and he's loving it. Because that's why we're here in this world, to fight our Yetzer Hara. That's why we're here. That's why we're here. So it's a good thing. And the mystics explain, if God forbid we're in a situation where we're having this big fight against the Yetzer Hara, actually say Tehillim 119. As we said, the numerical value of Vayovek is 119. So let's say Tehillim 119. And in fact, when King David wrote that Tehillim, the mystics say he had Jacob in mind, because he says, Ashrei Tamimei Derech. Praise will be the Tamim. Who are the Tamim? It says Yaakov, Ish, Yoshev, Ish Tom, Yoshev Aholim. He was called Tam. So even King David's alluding to the fight that Jacob had, and he's alluding to all of us. So one interesting skula for you, my dear friends, is next time you're having a big fight with the Yetzer Hara and you're like, wow, I'm losing this. Quickly get out the Psalms, say Tehillim 119, and that's a skula for, please God, overcoming the Yetzer Hara. At any rate, they're having this fight, and the fight's unfortunately not going too well for the Yetzer Hara, because Satan doesn't know who he's messing with. At the very beginning, this is what happened at the very beginning. The Yetzer Hara is dressed as this man, and he starts trying to taunt Jacob. Jacob initially doesn't know who it is. He goes, go to the other side of the stream and bring me some luggage. And all of a sudden, Jacob's going back to the stream and helping out. He's doing a bit of chesed like you would do, like helping an old lady across the road. So he's helping this, what he thinks is a man, with his luggage back. And then he always starts realizing every time he goes to the other side of the stream, there's more on the other side. This guy isn't a man. He's not just a magician. He's an angel causing tricks. And then the angel clocks that Jacob's clocked him. He throws a stone, says the Medrash, and it explodes like a fire. And now he's trying to hit him with like bolts of fire. And then Yaakov Avinu starts laughing and says, are you joking? Are you joking? You think I'm worried about fire? We come from the house of fire. We are fire. My grandfather Avram Avinu, you think he was worried about fire? Nimrod put him in a furnace and he survived that. The last thing we're worried about is fire. Try again, Satan. So Satan says, okay, try this one. And bang! That's when the fight began. Proper, big, ferocious fight going on. Headlocks. And light beats darkness every time. In fact, the Medrash is beautiful. Zohar says that the angel saw to the right Abraham, to the left Yitzchak, and then he saw Jacob. And he saw, you've got the kindness of Abraham to the right, you've got the justice of Yitzchak to the left, and you've got the harmony of Jacob. He couldn't beat him. It was too perfect. The Avot HaKadoshim, the Sfirot, were so mastery. They mastered the Sfirot. They were impenetrable. Satan couldn't get in. Jacob was going to win. And at that point, Satan said, okay, at least I'm going to hurt him. And he dislocated the thigh bone, the sciatica, on the right side, Kabbalistically, which is Netzach, which meant, tragically, he created a susceptibility for a Holocaust, for crusades, for terrible tragedies that Esav has inflicted upon the Jewish people. But he couldn't win, and he's not going to win, and we're still here. Am Yisrael Chai all comes as a result of Yaakov beating the angel, because whenever something physical happens, it's rooted first, my dear friends, in the spiritual. Everything's first of all rooted in the spiritual world. So this was kind of the genetic coding of what eventually comes out in the world, and Yaakov won. And then amazingly, it says until the morning. Why in the morning? Because the angel says, hello, it's dawn, Vasikin, I need to go daven. It's time to pray. I need to go pray. It's time to pray. Why? Because even angels daven, you know that? Even angels daven. So Satan himself is saying, I need to go daven too. I need to go daven. And when Jacob heard that, he's like, let's not miss a chance for an opportunity here. So what was the chance? Yaakov said, you know what? Give me a bracha. Give me a blessing. He asked for a blessing. So what did the angel say? The angel said something amazing. The angel said, what's your name? And Yaakov said, Yaakov. He said, no longer, we're changing the name on your passport. Now on, you're called Yisrael. You're called Israel. From now on, he's called Israel. He's called Israel. Let's understand. Yaakov, comes the word Akev, means heel. Yisrael comes from the word Rosh, which means head, Rosh Li. Yaakov's gone from the heel to the head. This was the big transition. This was the big moment. He went from Yaakov, who had to deceive, to now Yisrael, which means Yashar Kel. Hashem is straight, truth. He'd now mamish, achieved emet. He's now owning emet by him beating evil. And by beating the Yetzer Hara, he's now owning and coining. Isn't that amazing that we are called Yisrael? We're named by Satan. I bet you didn't know that. How mad is that? But it's such a deep name because it means we wrestled with God. Yisrael means as well, Sarisa Melakim. We wrestled with Hashem, which means if any of you have wrestled with God, and many of you have told me many times that you wrestle with God, Baruch Hashem, that's who we hear. As Jewish people, we wrestle with Hashem. We wrestle with our spirituality. We wrestle with our Yetzer Hara. There's nothing wrong in that. Beautiful. That's why we're here in this world. So like next time the Yetzer Hara starts on you and you start wrestling, don't feel guilty and feel bad. Say, I'm wrestling like Yaakov wrestled. I'm being Jewish. That's what it means to be Jewish. And then at the end, Yaakov says, okay, thank you for that name. That's nice. But what's your name? What's your name, angel? And the angel says, Lama zeh tishal lishmi. Why do you ask my name? 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 So if I was Yaakov at that point, and I just like smashed up the Yetzer Hara, even though I've got a bit of a dodgy thigh now, and I won, and I say to the Yetzer Hara, what's your name? And then he has the audacity to give me this politically dodgy answer, which is, why do you ask my name? I would say, don't give me the politician's answer, like they're saying with scotched eggs. What's your name? What's your name? Why did he let him off the hook and said, okay, then see you later, go and enjoy davening. Bye, daven for me. Why didn't he say, I've asked you what's your name? I'm not, and by the way, we know his name, S-A-M-A-E-L. We can't say it at night, it brings it bad impact. The name of Satan is S-E-M-A-E-L, or we call the Samach Mem. So the answer, the mystics say, is something beautiful. Because in a way, that was his name. Listen to this. The name of the Yetzer Hara is, why do you ask my name? Because the moment you know the name of the Yetzer Hara, you're halfway there to success. Your biggest Yetzer Hara is you don't even know it's there. Great line in Usual Suspects, no? The greatest trick the devil ever pulled, right? Is that you don't know it's there. And that's what the Yetzer Hara does to us the whole time. It's like we're being smashed without even realizing it. We're losing without even realizing we're playing. We have a thought in our head, we think it's a mitzvah and it's actually a sin. We have a thought in our heads and we think we're being noble and we're so far away from emet, but the Yetzer Hara is so clever in so many different guises and so many different masks. And by the way, there's something called a from Yetzer Hara as well. What's a from Yetzer Hara? When I went to yeshiva, and I was so inspired by yeshiva, inspired by the stories of the tzaddikim, I said, you know what? I'm just going to stay up all night. I want to be the last one out the door and the first one in the door. And for quite a few times, I was the last one to lock up the room in the yeshiva and the first one to open up. And then eventually, when I got ill, all of a sudden my body couldn't cope anymore because joke I was, Leila's in the house. Well, nice to see you, Leila. Welcome back. So that was maybe my Yetzer Hara trying to make me vulnerable that then I'm going to burn out. In other words, sometimes the Yetzer Hara will say, oh, do this and this and this and this and this, and overwhelm you so much, and then you crash, and then he's got you again. So we have to learn sometimes to spot it, even spot the from Yetzer Hara, spot the non-from Yetzer Hara, spot the lustful Yetzer Hara, the ego Yetzer Hara. We need to spot it and know it. And when we unmask the Yetzer Hara, which we're going to speak about shortly, then you're going to be there to win. And that's what Yaakov's doing. He's trying to teach us the lesson that for us to succeed, we need to unmask the Yetzer Hara. Last verse I want to look into before I go into strategies of how we, my dear friends, are going to beat the Yetzer Hara. My 10 commandments, how to beat the Yetzer Hara, which is going to be hopefully life-changing. One last verse I want to go with you. The actual meeting itself, because the meeting itself between Jacob and Esau is mad. So if you go to chapter 33, verse 4, it says that Esau now runs in front of us. Now the final meeting, everybody. This is it. The meeting between Yaakov and Esau. What's going to happen? Are they going to have a big fight as well? Is he going to take out a sword and chop off his head? What's going to happen? Just by the way, how Esau died in the end by Hushim ben Dan, the grandson of Jacob. In the end, that's how Esau in the end dies, and his head rolls into the cave of Machpelah. But this moment, there's this meeting between Yaakov and Esau. What's going to happen? Says the Torah. First of all, it says Yaakov bows down 7 times, which Kabbalistically was something very deep. He was connecting, he was bowing, he was being humble to Hashem and connecting to the 7 different lower sfirot of Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Hod, Netzach, Yisod, Malchus, humbling himself to all of them. Now he's ready to meet Esav. And it says that Esav fell on his neck, which the neck is referring to the Beis HaMikdash. I'm not going to go into that now. Vayishlach, and he kissed him, and that's what I want to speak about just for a minute. It says, and he kissed him. Do you know that? There was a kiss. Can you imagine after all this, Esav swore blind that he's going to kill Yaakov. From the moment of Esav, of Yaakov tricking him twice, which is what the Yaakov mean, you outwitted me twice. Esav said, I'm going to kill you. And now they finally meet. He kisses him. Bit of a letdown. You know, it's a bit wet of him. And in fact, there's dots around the Sefer Torah. If you look in the Torah, if you look in your Chumash, you'll see dots around the words. And he kissed. Why is there dots? Listen up to this. Check this out. Whenever there's dots, it means it's not its literal meaning. So the first way to look at it, it wasn't a real kiss, says the Midrash. It was a bite. It was like a vampire's bite. He's trying to kill him. And kill him by the nerve. They're the way you shech the animals. He was an expert shochet. He's trying to shecht his brother with his teeth. And Hashem made a miracle and made Yaakov's neck turn to marble, says the Medrash. And then Esav cries because he nearly broke his teeth. That was, it says afterwards they cried. But then Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says something so deep. I just want to dwell on it for a minute. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, yes, Esav wanted to kill him. And we know Esav's so wicked. Rasha, Rasha, Rasha. But also Esav's got a good side. Esav's got a holy soul. The holy soul that Yitzchak Avinu knew about. The soul that Yitzchak Avinu fell in love with. The soul that Yitzchak Avinu wanted to bless. The soul that was meant to marry Leah. The soul that was meant to be the father really of King David with the red hair. That soul for one moment, says Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, fell in love with Yaakov, fell in love with his brother, did a bit of tshuva, had a bit of mercy, and it was a genuine kiss. And the dots is the twist. It was a genuine kiss. For a moment, it was a beautiful kiss. The Arizal says that eventually the reincarnation of Esav came into a tzaddik, that if Sarah Gittel's there, you can go and visit his grave, Rav Meir Balanes. I'm sure you've all got stocker boxes of Rav Meir Balanes. How many of you have got in your house a charity box of Rav Meir if you don't get one? The Arizal says that was a reincarnation of Esav HaTzadik. That was the real Esav. That was the beautiful Esav. That was the Esav that Hashem really wanted in this world. The Esav that Yitzchak fell in love with and blessed. And he came good in the end, in a future life. And this was just for a moment of goodness. You know, it's funny, this is the week that Darth Vader, not funny, I shouldn't say that, but Darth Vader, the actor playing Darth Vader, died. And we've been saying that Esav, for me, is a little bit like Darth Vader, that Anakin Skywalker, he has so much light, he could have been the best Jedi, but then he chooses the dark side. And he becomes Darth Vader. But then there's this moment, now him being Darth Vader, that he almost goes back to Anakin for a moment. He just goes back to the child in him and goes back to the hope in him and to the kindness in him. And there's this moment of a real, genuine kiss. Let's now discuss how, by the way, sorry, Gittel, thank you so much for praying for us by the Basayan. We owe you eternally for that. Last week we spoke about Basayan, and sorry, Gittel went and prayed for us, so thank you. Now let's go really deep. Are you ready? That was kind of just the intro. Now we're just going to do some freestyle deep how you over there, and you know I'm talking to, can beat your Yitzhar. And as soon as I say that, my daughter comes on screen. What's up, bro? Happy birthday to my daughter. It's my daughter. Birthday present. Come and hear her daddy speak. Okay, listen up. First of all, what is this Yitzhar? Says the Talmud, when we're born, in the womb, we're our soul learning with an angel. But the moment we're born, the Talmud says at that moment that we're born, the Yetzer Hara comes in. The Yetzer Hara comes in, meaning there's this evil inclination, this lower self, this desire for bad. And it's there from the age 0 to the age boy 13, girl 12, without the opposing Yetzer Tov. So really it's kind of schluffing. It's not really doing much. And as we know, and my daughter knows, the children are very much a product of parenthood, really up until 12, 13. And actually the Torah says that by Jacob and Esau, it says there was no difference between them till Bar Mitzvah. But then when it's Bar Mitzvah, then the Yetzer Tov comes in, and now you've got this opposition. So just if you don't know what the Yetzer Hara is, you really, really, really do, because he's kind of running your life. So that voice, when you wake up in the morning, is let's go back to sleep. That's Yetzer Hara. That voice which gets very gluttonous and hungry, and I need to buy that and eat that and eat that. Yetzer Hara. That voice which is egotistical, Yetzer Hara. That voice who's angry, Yetzer Hara. That voice that says, oh, I really can't be bothered to listen to Rabbi Hill right now, Yetzer Hara. That voice that doesn't want to give charity, is miserly, Yetzer Hara. That voice that's, uncontrollable, lustful, Yetzer Hara. You know that, you with me now? That voice of low self-esteem, Yetzer Hara. That voice of arrogance, Yetzer Hara. Self-sabotage side of us, which has got tremendous powers, which really comes from the camp of Satan, comes from the camp of evil, comes from the camp of Esav. It says even the angel of death. They all come from the same place, same source. And there's this kind of negative influence in our mind, in our head, in our essence. Baruch Hashem, we have something called the Yetzer Tov, that good voice, that voice which wants you to do good, that voice which is, I think Freud, and I've heard literally this week that he literally studied Kabbalah, and because the whole idea of child, adult, parent is so Kabbalistic. Child, Yetzer Hara, parent, Yetzer Tov, adult, us, our free will. So we have this higher voice saying, do good. Listen to Rabbi Hill, stay, it's going to get better. It really gets worth staying. He said the last 5 minutes is going to be awesome, so stay, right? So that's kind of the good voice. The good voice, I really should give charity. I should be kind. I should be more compassionate. I really should be more careful with my speech. That's the Yetzer Tov. That's what Hashem wants from us. And then it's us in the middle. It's almost like you're driving in a car and there's these two sat-navs. You've got Waze saying go right and you've got Google Maps saying left. And you in the middle are making the call what to do. We're kind of living in between the Yetzer Hara, Yetzer Tov, making decisions. Which one do we align ourselves, God forbid, to the devil, or do we want to be close to Hashem? We can choose Gan Eden or Gehenna every moment. That's the Yetzer Hara. And then it says, Kol HaGadol Mimenu Yitzro Gadol Mimenu. The higher you are, the higher your Yetzer Hara is going to be, which is crazy, right? Which means, please God, you start ascending and learning and growing and evolving. Hashem, in order for free will to be stable, strengthens the Yetzer Hara as well. What's up, Catty? Nice to see you. Right? And that's what happens. It's a constant fair fight. It's a bit like when you play PlayStation and you win level 3, it's easy. You have to go to level 4. Your nemesis gets harder. Always the fight's got to be fair. Oh, and by the way, the Talmud says at the very end, when the end of Mashiach, Hashem is going to shecht your Yetzer Hara in front of you. He's going to take you to the Mount Moriah, and the place where he asked Abraham to shecht Isaac. He's going to go and take your Yetzer Hara and slaughter it there in front of your eyes, and we're all going to cry. The wicked people will cry because they'll realize the Yetzer Hara was so tiny, was so minuscule, was so silly, and how I lost to that. Am I mad? How could I have lost to that? You can't believe you lost. And the tzaddik cries as well because it sees how scary and gigantic and devilish, and it's the scary, biggest monster ever, and you managed to win. You can't believe the blessing and the gratitude you have for winning. But how do we win? How do we win? So one way we win is by unmasking, naming, understanding the name of the Yetzer Hara. There's a piece of Talmud, if I can find it, in Sukkah, page 52a, if you want to check it out, which says there's actually 7 names that the Torah calls the Yetzer Hara. Quickly talk, the Yetzer Hara is called evil. It's called uncircumcised. It's called impure. It's called the enemy. It's called a stumbling block. It's called the hidden one. Many names for it. And I'm going to give you the 10 commandments how to beat your Yetzer Hara, based from this week's Seder of how Jacob beat Satan himself. Are you ready? Let's go. Number 1, strategy. We need to strategize in life, my dear friends. If you want to win, you've got to strategize. You can't just dive in. Too many people are just diving into challenges, to circumstances, and then crying afterwards and thinking, how have I got here? And you should have just stopped before you crossed the road and say, should I be crossing this road? And what is this road? And am I going in the right direction? And if you want to know how to beat your Yetzer Hara, just stop a minute and let's define, what is my Yetzer Hara? Which of my voices are my Yetzer Hara? The voice is telling you now, let's go to bed. That's your Yetzer Hara, for example, right? But then sometimes if you've got something very important in the morning, it wouldn't be the Yetzer Hara to say, go to sleep. So you've got to unmask it. That's why Yaakov said, what's your name? First and foremost, you've literally got to go and unmask the Yetzer Hara, and then deepen that. There's different types of Yetzer Haras. They're called, the Kabbalists explain, and the Sivir Shalom says there's the love on Yetzer Hara. What's the love on Yetzer Hara? That's the intellectual Yetzer Hara. That sometimes in our head, we get intellectually confused. We have this almost lust for incorrect intellectualism. Obviously atheism comes from that. When you are using rationale to almost defeat God, that's the Lavan. And that's a very dangerous Yetzer Hara. Someone who wants to say, the Torah must be nonsense. How, really? 3,300 years ago, it's exactly the same edition? That's the Lavan Yetzer Hara. In our heads, sometimes we have the intellectual Yetzer Hara, but then there's the Esav Yetzer Hara. It's the more lustful Yetzer Hara. It's the more ego Yetzer Hara. You've got to define that, and then you've got to define, for example, let's say you're driving in the street and someone cuts you up. Why is it that you get angry? Why is it that you, let's unravel it. Is it ego? Is it arrogance? Is it because you think how dare that person come in front of me? It's my car, it's my space, it's my road, it's my world. How dare that person get in front of me? Many different vices and sins are all rooted in ego. You need to try and just unravel and define who is your opponent. Are you worse when you're hungry? I always say to people, right, when you come home, eat. Because too many people come home and then they start an argument. And if you just eaten for a bit, you'd be fine. So just eat. And that just shuts up the Yetzer Hara. Sometimes sleep. I know some people, when they're ever tired, they're just really ratty. Obviously no one in my family, but just saying out there that, some people can be ratty when they're not tired and they need to sleep. So sometimes sleep. So you've got to know what makes your Yetzer Hara tick, what doesn't. Strategize and start being honest with yourself about which of your voices in your head. So at least start having self-awareness that when you're having your inner debates, at least what's your Yetzer Hara. Even if you lose, at least own it and say, yeah, my Yetzer Hara got me today, this morning. I woke up in a bad mood and I was kicked the cat. Really not nice to my family. Fair enough. Sorry. Won't do it again. At least there's honesty there. At least it's your Yetzer Hara. So step one, to strategize. Number one. Number two, daven. The Talmud says, actually, there's no way on God's earth you can beat your Yetzer Hara. It's way stronger than you, way scarier than you, way more cunning than you. There's a great Rosh Hashiva called Rabbi Conan Wasserman that one was always telling his students to learn b'chavrusa, learn in two. And one day they found him learning by himself, and they said, Rosh Hashiva, why are you learning by yourself? Who are you learning with? He goes, I have a chavrusa. They said, who's your chavrusa? My chavrusa is my Yetzer Hara. I'm learning with my lower self. And they said to him, really? Why would you be learning? At least pick your Yetzer Tov. He goes, nah, my Yetzer Hara is much cleverer. There's nothing more cunning than the Yetzer Hara. And you can't really beat it. So therefore, how do you win? Says the Gemara. Without Hashem's help, you couldn't do it. Any yachallah, you couldn't win it. Only with Hashem's help. So, before anything, pray. You pray, you say Hashem, and that's what Jacob does. He says, Hashem, I need your help. I can't be Esau without you. And so in your davening, add in, Hashem, help me with my Yetzer Hara today. And by the way, it's in there. Many times, especially at the beginning, straight after the morning blessings, there's a beautiful line, Hashem, help me with my Yetzer Hara today. Help me overcome challenges. Help me overcome ordeals. Give it over to Hashem. Acknowledge that we need Hashem's help. Pray to overcome it. One just small side point. Learn how, it's really connected to number one. So this isn't number three, it's number one. Learn how to talk to your Yetzer Hara. When you unmask it, have a chat with it. Have a conversation with it. Learn. Don't be scared of it. Talk to your Yetzer Hara. Talk it out. I'll give you an example. One of the tzaddikim I feel so close to, and it's such a merit. He kind of called me, and he's allowed me to learn his Torah and be connected to the rabbi called the Kedushas Levi, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Beditchev. I feel really super close. Thank God I had the merit now to go take some of you to his grave twice in the Ukraine. Amongst a very scary field with scary wild dogs. Trust me, it was a bit like that moment when you're crossing over the lake and, oh my gosh, and it was like 4 a.m. and I've just taken a group and Baruch Hashem, we're good. We're still standing. So Kedushas Levi once, he was in shul, and he was Shabbos Mincha. If any of you, please God, very soon can get back to shul Shabbos Mincha, when you lift the Sefer Torah up, the letters light up spiritually, really light up Shabbos Mincha. So always the Rebbe is the one that picks up the Hagbah. So he was the Rebbe, and he was asked to go and do it. So they see him all of a sudden talking to himself. He's like Levi Yitzchak, and he's talking to himself. In the middle of shul, he's talking to himself. And then he suddenly takes off his talus and says, if you want it so much, you do it. Puts the talus on the chair and walks out the shul. True story. Middle of Bedichev. Afterwards, they asked him, what was that about, Rabbi? Since when do you start talking to taluses? Not very normal. And he said to him, I have to be honest with you. I was given the job of Hagbah, and all of a sudden, my Yetzer Hara starts on me. Psh. Of course, you're the one who needs Hagbah. Only you can see the lights. You need to say Hagbah. So he said, Yetzer Hara, can you please go away? Like, I'm here doing a mitzvah. Can you, get out of my head? And Yetzer Hara says, yeah, but you know that you're the only one in the shul that really deserves it. So in the end, he said, you know what, Yetzer Hara? If you want to do Hagbah, you do it. Isn't that amazing? Meaning he was able to spot that little voice of arrogance that was a little bit coming in, that voice, what we call it, of kavod, that was coming in. He was able to spot it straight away. That was my Yetzer Hara, and separate himself from the Yetzer Hara, and then he won. So sometimes you can win by conversing with the Yetzer Hara, separating and being victorious. So that was number one, unmasking and challenging it. Number two, praying. Number three, war. You got to prepare for war. Got to war it. But the way we war is different ways. Your job isn't to literally have a physical fight with yourself. Let's not do that. We war in the ways that can beat the Yetzer Hara. And here are a few ways to win. Number one, who Yaakov Avinu was. Torah, the Gemara in Sukkah says, the Yetzer Hara is starting with you, Moshcheyu lebeis hamedrash, schlep him to the yeshiva, open up your sefer, put on Rabbi Hill's classes on YouTube, start listening to Torah. If you start listening to Torah and start learning Torah, then the Yetzer Hara is going to struggle to get in. And if you're saying, he's not getting in, but if you're really focused, and if you're just focusing on this share now, really, take off your other distractions, turn off those other devices, just start tuning in, you tuned in, you're learning Torah now, let's learn Torah. Learning Torah, the Yetzer Hara can't get in. One thing is to learn Torah. That's why, says Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, Satan didn't start with Abraham, he didn't start with Isaac, he started with Jacob, because what the Yetzer Hara doesn't want more than anything is Torah, and that's what Jacob symbolized. So when you learn Torah, that's really going to help. So up your Torah learning, and specifically if you feel that you're under attack from the Yetzer Hara, just quickly open up a sefer. Quickly open up. Say the Shema even. Shema is part of Torah. Big part of Torah. It's in the Torah. Say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Say Shema. That hopefully can quieten the Yetzer Hara. Number 4, do an act of chesed. Do an act of kindness. Do kindness. Because one of the core issues with the Yetzer Hara is ego. It's all about me. So when you give, that erodes the ego. Do an act of chesed. If you really want to start seeing salvations in your life and start seeing you overcome. If you have a big business meeting, give some charity first. You have something important, you got a test result, give charity. Stoka tzatzel mimovet, says the Gemara. Charity saves from death, and it saves us from the Yetzer Hara. Next, Tiferes. What did we say? Satan, when he's fighting Jacob, he realized he couldn't win because he saw on the right Abraham, kindness. He saw on the left Isaac, prayer, and he saw in the middle Jacob, Torah, and balance. Tiferes means balance. My dear friends, we have to learn how to be balanced. Says the Kotzker, a tightrope walker, if the tightrope walker is falling on the left side, you quickly go to the other extreme to get back in the middle. Learn to be balanced, but learn to go to, for example, those of you who've got very low self-esteem, start saying strong affirmations about how amazing you are. But then those of you who are feeling very arrogant, start saying, you know what, I'm nothing. I'm nothing. As like King David says, I'm a worm and not even a man. We need to learn how to balance ourselves to get us in the middle. And that means when you're feeling haughty, start feeling more low. And you're feeling too low, start feeling high. And that concept of balancing yourself Tiferes is a nice way to ground you and to settle you. Sorry, it was the Rishonah that says, not the Kotzker, the Rishonah said that. Next one. The next one I think I would suggest is this one. There's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. See the consequences. The Mishnah says, if you look up chapter 3, Mishnah 1, think three things, you can't come to sin. Number 1, know where you've come from. Number 2, where you're going. Number 3, who you're going to be giving a judgment to, which will be Hashem. Start thinking of consequences. You know, if your Yitzhak says, I really want to do that sin, say, but do you really want Hashem to see it? He's kind of watching. And there's going to be this huge, like, big DVD, and all the people you don't want watching you doing that sin will be watching, doing that, seeing you. Is it really worth it? Are you sure you're up for it? And more than that, start thinking that sometimes, God forbid, when we get challenges in this world, sometimes it comes directly, it's a direct consequence of us letting the side down. For example, it's very, very often, if you don't give enough money to charity, you'll start seeing challenges in the area financially. You know, you do sins with your mouth, you start seeing pain in your mouth. So, for example, for me, as some of you know, I've got like a Coke addiction, you know, the red can type of Coke addiction. When I have toothache, all of a sudden I'm a bit better in my addiction. It's just like, it's not worth it. I'm going to have to go to the dentist, and I hate the dentist. And when we think of consequences, that really helps us with the Yitzhak. So I really suggest thinking consequences, thinking this sin isn't worth it. You know, how many men, women, wouldn't have affairs if they really just focused on the consequences? If this gets out, I lose my family. I know people that haven't got a relationship now with their loved ones and their children and their grandchildren because of a one-night stand. It's not worth it. But one of the ways the Yetzer Hara wins, it doesn't let you stop and think of what will be if I do that, what will be if I get caught, what are the consequences. And it's so important just to stop, think of consequences, think of Hashem, think of who you're standing in front of, and that can help you defeat your Yetzer Hara. Next one, if you get the moment, you get that bit of inspiration, it's really important, as the Mishnah says, for Imlay Akshav Amosai, if not now, when? So, for example, let's say one of you says, you know what, wow, this talk's amazing. I really want to stop eating non-kosher meat. That's it. I'm going to stop eating non-kosher meat. But tomorrow you've got a meal planned. If you've got that inspiration to stop, it's got to stop now. You've got to say now. It can't be, but I'll stop in like 6 months. Or when I get married, I'll have a kosher kitchen. Or when I have kids, because there's always mañana. It's really important that there's that moment of that inspiration. You have to actualize it there and then. If you actualize it there and then you will start winning. Next, help. Sometimes ask for help. Sometimes it's too hard. Your inner voice can be too complex. There's nothing wrong with asay lecha rav or knei lecha chaver. Make yourself a rav. Acquire for yourself a friend. Sometimes get objective help. Sometimes parents can help. But sometimes, like, if you've got this quandary, you've got this challenge, you're not sure, how to overcome your Yetzer Hara in this area, ask for help. That's why we're here as the Jewish people. We're here as a community. We're here to help each other. We're here to befriend each other. We're here to advise each other. Sometimes someone objective can see into you much clearer than yourself. Or I'll tell you, start giving yourself the advice you'd give someone else next time you have that dilemma. But I think it's really important to ask for advice. That's a Torah approach, asay lecha rav. And I highly recommend it. Number 9, we nearly finished. 1 more to go. And the 10 is the game changer, so stay for 10. It's awesome. Number 9 is what Jacob did. He bowing down. He bowed down. Sometimes be prepared to bow down. Sometimes learn how to say, I'm sorry. Own it. I'm wrong. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. Hashem gave me the Yetzer Hara. Be humble. And ironically, when you're humble, when you make yourself nothingness, that's when you become great. That's when your Yetzer Hara, oh, he's being humble. Okay, boring. Let him win then. The moment you really embrace humility, your Yetzer Hara is going to let you win. And finally, soft, and this is the game changer. Are you ready? It was worth the whole hour for this. This is crazy, deep from Reb Tzadok HaKohen. The core way that Jacob beat Esav in the end, and how we can beat our Yetzer Hara, is ironically not to fight the Yetzer Hara, but to love our Yetzer Hara. What does that mean? The famous verse in the Torah, V'yohavta l'reacha kamecha. You should love your friend like you love yourself. The word re'acha, the root of that is ra, means evil, which means love the evil in you. What does that mean? It means that we shouldn't spend our life, like maybe certain other religions do, feeling guilt and hating ourselves and feeling full of self-hate if we've got certain inclinations we're not proud of. Instead, we should embrace the child in us. Say, I love myself. I get myself. So for example, if you love food, you really love food, and I remember one of my students said much harder than he said than Shabbat. Shabbat was easy, but kosher is the hardest. So I said to him, you know what, you need to go to the best kosher restaurant and have the most delicious food. In other words, indulge your desire for food, but do that with kosher. Do it in a kosher way. Some of you like wine. Now, if you're an alcoholic, don't do this, right? If you're not an alcoholic, you just like wine, but you like non-kosher wine. So buy some beautiful kosher wine and make a beautiful blessing. And even better, save it for Shabbos. Because the job of Jews is to spiritualize the physical, is to channel that lower self, is to turn the Yetzer Hara and make it work for Hashem. Be brothers and sisters with our Yetzer Hara. Become friends with your Yetzer Hara. If you become enemies and you're always at loggerheads and you hate each other, you start getting full of self-hate, full of self-loathing, and then the Yetzer Hara is totally going to win. It's going to bring you down. There's this kind of affliction that we have in today's generation, which has never seen anything like it, where you've got from families, and many children are going what we coin off the derech, becoming not religious. And one of the core reasons is because it's too repressive, it's too oppressive. You're not listening to the child. You have to do this, 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 as opposed to, let's say a child's got a desire for something, and first of all, listen, communicate, should be love, and then let's find a kosher way to access that desire you have. There must be a kosher way. There must be a kosher way. I'll give you an extreme example. There's a Talmud that says if you're born in the sign of Mars, there's a desire for murder. I don't know if you know that. Says the Talmud in Shabbat. There's this murderous element. But it says instead of, God forbid, becoming a murderer, instead let's channel it, becoming a shochet. Kill the animal in a humane, kosher way and have the meat, or even better, become a doctor. And let's let blood out, but let's save lives with that inner desire where you wanted to take lives. Let's turn it around and take the Yetzer Hara's desire and do a mitzvah with it. That's Judaism. That's Kedusha. This is a game changer, my friends. Like, if you really feel this, you're going to start climbing your ladder so quickly. So you don't have to feel so guilty about some of your feelings and some of your desires. You don't have to feel you're low. Hashem gave you a Yetzer Hara. That's where it's come from. But Hashem wants you to love yourself. Love your child. Even love your Yetzer Hara. And Rav Tzadok HaKohen says that's what Yaakov did with Esau. They fell in love in the end. He accessed the love that they had for each other. He fell in love with his brother. Again. And it says, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that was the kiss at the end. Learn how to give your Yetzer Hara a kiss in a way. But just say you'll be unconditionally loving your Yetzer Hara, unconditionally loving the child in you, and then channeling it for good. So for example, there's even this case in the Torah which says that if you're at war and there's the beautiful woman that the enemies put out there to try and tempt you, instead of the Torah saying, but just got to say no, you got to run the other way, it doesn't say that. It says, the Torah has never asked you to go against natural inclinations. So it says, in the right way, it says, you know what, let's be makarafa. Let's get her involved in Judaism a bit. Let's keep her a bit apart. Let's let some of your life, you can be together at the right time in the right way. You've got to count some days, you've got to grow her nails, she's going to not look very pretty for a while, and see if you're still interested in each other. And then, if you really want to, there's a kosher way of doing it. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing that Hashem gets us because he created us? He put in the Yetzer Hara. He's not asking us to repress who we are. He's asking us to channel our desires for Hashem, channel our desires for holiness. And I think that's, as I said, an incredible game changer. And I think can really, really change our lives if we learn how to beat our Yetzer Hara through love, as opposed to beat our Yetzer Hara through violence. One final thing the Talmud says, that the Yetzer Hara says the Talmud is a bit like a traveler. Sometimes you get a knock on the door. You ever had that? You get a knock on the door and someone says, traveler, I'm your long lost relative, I've got nowhere to stay. They'll probably be singing when they say that. Can I come and stay with you? Do you mind if I come and stay with you? So you say, okay, no problem, because I might need that one day, so okay, I just want to do chesed, so okay, you can come and stay in the spare room. Says the Talmud, the next morning they wake up in your bed with your clothes on, and they put you in the spare bed with their clothes on. So the Yetzer Hara is so cunning. The Yetzer Hara will play tricks. He gets in, says the Kliyaka, like a fly who's waiting for a crack to appear. As I said, now we're learning Torah, Baruch Hashem, he can't get in. You're giving charity, you're being humble, he can't get in. But the moment you're complacent, bang, he gets in. And then before you know it, he's dressing up as you, masquerading as you. You don't know one way or the other who's the Yetzer Hara and who's the Yetzer Tov. And the way to succeed is, I believe, these 10 things. Let's go through it one last time. If you're making notes, let's write this out together. Number 1, to strategize and communicate with the Yetzer Hara. Number 2, to daven to Hashem. Without prayer, you're not going to succeed. Then we start down the Jacob's way to war against, like prayer for war against Esau, but the way we really war against Yetzer Hara. Number 3, Torah. Number 4, kindness. Give charity, do acts of kindness. Next, tiferes, balance. Next, consequences, see the consequences of our action. Next, reasons, passion, if not now, when. Finally, objective help. Then, number 9, humility. And finally, number 10, love your Yetzer Hara. Bring him in. Become friends with your Yetzer Hara. And then, but you just be in control. You channel your Yetzer Hara to use it for Kiddush Hashem. And that, my dear friends, is how we win and how we bring Mashiach, the Be'ez Hashem, will come this week. Be'ez Hashem. We're looking forward to learning Torah with you when you rebuilt Jerusalem immediately. Any questions? Happy to take questions. L'chaim, everybody. I'm done. Questions? Let's do some questions. Please give me some questions or share. Maybe it's something if you want to come on camera and give an idea. It's free for all now. Talk to me. Somebody talk to me. Talk to me. Otherwise, I'm talking to myself like Levi Yitzchak, and then I'm not as holy as him, so I can't get away with it. Someone talk to me. Send me a comment. And probably if you can do it on, do it on the Avi Hill one. Okay, Sherry, thank you. Does that mean that anything that I was born on this Sedra? It means so much, Sherry. It means so much. It means that this is your Sedra. It means there's secrets of you in here. And you have to learn the Sedra. You have to learn it well. You have to learn it well. It was not a coincidence you're born in this week. For sure not. This is your Sedra. So you have to look at it. Basically, read it. Katie, what's number 8? I think number 8 was objective help. Get objective help. Ask for help. Rebecca, with all that said, the Yetzer Hara is actually good. Yeah. In the end, it's good. It says, Rebecca, when Hashem made the Yetzer Hara, that was very good. It's even, because without the Yetzer Hara, we can't get close to Hashem. You with me? It's the Yetzer Hara, by overcoming the Yetzer Hara. That's how we earn our free will, and that's how we become masters of good. As the Ramchal says, we only become close to Hashem by choosing good. But in order to choose good, and why we're greater than angels, is we have a Yetzer Hara, and when we can win from our Yetzer Hara, that's when. So in the end, everything's good. And that's maybe the idea. In the end, whatever Hashem does is good. Everything's good in the end. So when you're looking from that higher vantage point, everything is good.